Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Jed Morgan, and I am so excited to be here. I've been thinking about this stream for a long time, and I'm glad I finally just decided to do it. I'm so happy to be joined by all these beautiful people who we'll say hello to in a moment, and we'll say hello to the chat as well. But I just got to say, this is a dream come true for me with all these amazing, creative people joining me. Especially you, Adam. You're the prettiest one.
I'm the belle of the ball.
You are the belle of the ball.
Exactly. I think it's Dre.
Oh,
you put on this special do-rag today.
Oh yes,
match the background.
Got Goldilocks on today.
Oh, I have something to say about Adam though.
Not even once.
Well, I mean, I've had sex before. Just never with a person.
I play that video every Tuesday stream, so it was tradition. I had to sneak it in there somewhere. But no, Biggles isn't here. Jaden Hamilton, that's usually how I introduce him. But yeah, that movie's a bit whack. But we are joined by these incredible creative people, and I want to introduce you guys individually. But while you do it, I wanted you to say like what your writing experience is, maybe a joke about your first project to your last project. Like for me, I've been writing for almost 10 years now. Quite a long time for me, mostly scripts, switched to books a couple years ago. My first one was this god-awful Raid on the Termites book. It was a scientist and his adventurer cousin shrink and go into a termitary and learn about communism from termites. It was weird.
That's weird. I kind of want to read that.
I am intrigued.
It was like 60 pages long. I thought it was like the coolest thing ever. And I was going to make a short film on it. And I didn't think through the visual effects needed to show that. But that's kind of how it is. But then for my current projects, I have a book series, Odyssey of a Phoenix. The first 2 books are out. All my links to that stuff and to these beautiful people's links below in the description. But I want to introduce Lady Balefire, who this is her first time on my channel. It's so great to have you here. How's it going?
Awesome. I'm so happy to be here. I feel like it's so cool. When I heard you publish books, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. And I think I've been writing probably for most of my life. I've been writing since I was a little kid. I just make up stories. And then as I got older, like late teens, like I started writing fan fiction, and I used to write that for a really long time, except for like this year. I said, that's it, no more fan fiction. And or actually that's probably like 3 years ago, but yeah, I have an English degree, so obviously I like books and reading a lot and literature. And I went to film school, and what I studied there was screenwriting and development. And I feel kind of weird because I don't have a lot of work, because what I was focusing on there is development. It's almost like you're a writing coach for screenwriters, or like you're working on a like writing team with like a TV show. So you're going to develop stuff to be produced and help people become better writers. And I really enjoyed doing that. And I kind of like teaching. I like teaching people about writing and just coaching people. So I did that for a while. So I don't have a huge body of my own works yet, but I'm getting there. And I just decided like this year that I was going to start writing original novels. So I started writing a fantasy Western. And yeah, hopefully we can talk about that later.
Yes, absolutely. We're going to be pimping everyone's stuff, but it's definitely a great experience you have there, because I need to be taught a lot about writing. Grammar is so difficult for me. Especially because I do very specific like slang a lot of the times. Like I've actually researched the correct slang for a certain region at a certain time period. I'm trying to get it nailed. But like
accuracy is important.
Yeah, accuracy, that's a big deal for me. But when my editor reads it, he's like, this is all terrible grammar. I'm like, I know it is, but it's on purpose, please.
It's dialogue.
And it's a lot of my stories are first person, so a lot of their internal thoughts are in that
slang too. Interesting.
So,
that's first person. That's an interesting choice.
Yeah,
I've always leaned towards more of that because I love the internal dialogue. That's what I really want to do. So I give up describing scenery and locations to rather describe what people are thinking and feeling. So my book series is first person, then character chapters on top of that, and it's present tense. The present tense was really important to me because
that's an interesting choice.
Again. I didn't want, since it was so visceral for the emotional state of the characters, since I mean, it's all about mental illness. The main character, he commits suicide in chapter 1. So I didn't want like the the looking back, hindsight is 2020 type perspective when it's that visceral to the moment it's happening. So I felt like that was the best way to do it. I do have some third person some past tense if like I have some commentary chapters that are about the histories. So that's kind of a separate edition. But yeah, it's all over the place. I'm all over the place. But I realized when I said it with Lady B that it was the first time on the channel, I realized it was both the rest of the panel's first time as well. So Adam, this is your first time on my channel, on my show. It's so great to have you here. We've been holding this off for far too long, man.
Yeah, I guess we just needed a real reason. And honestly, when you asked me to come on last week, I thought, damn it, he beat me to it. He beat me to doing this type of show. This is the kind of thing, when I made my channel, this is the kind of thing that I had hoped to foster. Writers coming together in an independent sphere where we could talk about our stuff. And when our stuff is live and out there, we promote it. We do it the Comicsgate fashion. We get it out there. People are running crowdfunding. We show what's going on. We get the chat involved. We have a good time, put on a good show, and get our books funded or get our books sold if they're already available for sale. I'd wanted to do that, and it's on my end. I thought, okay, I'm not there yet. I don't have enough interaction. We're getting there, but then he saw like, damn it, he beat me to it. So I thought, hell yeah, I'll go. It's something I've wanted to do constantly, and I'm happy to talk about it. Also because, and while I'll be happy to talk about as much as I can, most of my original stuff is under somewhat lock and key since only the sample chapter 1 is out there. The rest of it, it's done. As Jed knows, I just finished my 5th edit, I think, of the current version last night, and it's as spit polished as I could make it. So I didn't make any structural changes. Is basically, I think I said it last night. I basically picking things up off the floor, wiping down the countertop, cleaning the windows, changing a few words here and there. That's all it was. I mean, but this is what I want to do. I like the YouTuber life. It's fun. It's entertaining. There's people who are doing this, but deep down, all I want to do is write my stories. That's all I want to do is write my stories. I just want to tell my stories. I mean, I've been doing this for
don't age yourself, Adam. Don't
almost
you do
30 years. I'm gonna date myself. Everybody knows I'm an old fart. I don't look it, but I am. And I've been doing this for almost 30 years. I started like Lady B. I started in fanfic in the 90s. There, that was my first one. The Lunar franchise was my gateway drug. I don't count piddly shit that I did in grade school. This was my first honest thing. I thought, I have an idea for a third game, because the original 2 games were out. This is a still from the promotional stuff from the remake. But I thought, I have an idea for a third one, and I put it out there, and people liked it. I still have it. It's the musings of a teenager who had the hots for a girl and wanted to put her in there at one point. That's where, let's be honest, and we'll get into characters. When you're writing characters, first of all, you write who you know in the beginning. And
absolutely,
that's how it got in there. But then it went forward from that. This was the first one. Then I started the sequel, but that got put on hold while I was in college. And then I moved into the realm of Tenchi Muyo fan fiction.
Tenchi Muyo!
I'll be honest, I was famous in the fanfics realm. I got my awards right here. I got them from the Kios. When that community started up their awards, I won awards. I got screwed out of a couple of them because I was a part of the clique. But I got my awards. I was famous there. And after that, beginning in 2002, I said, okay, I'm going to write my own shit now. I'm going to write my own shit. I started putting together ideas from D&D stuff, and I cobbled together, and I did the first draft of Guardian of Innocence. I thought it was the greatest thing in the world, and it was okay. It was not. It was not. But I planned the whole idea.
I feel about mine too.
Oh, well, this is 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I know it was not as good because I'm looking at what I do now. That's it. But then I went back and I shelved it when I went through the rejection phase, and
it's difficult.
Then I said, okay, I'm going back to the fanfic stuff, but I finished my Tenchi Muyo series for the most part. I did the original, the sequel, a bunch of short stories, started the third part, but then when they released the third OAV and all that stuff, and they destroyed the universe, as far as I was concerned, I said, that's it. I'm done. I've fallen out of love. And I went back to my own stuff, and I started doing what I called fusion fiction, where I took my D&D adventures. And I said, I'm putting them on paper. I got a bunch of good ideas, and I just started going from a certain point. And I ended up surrounded by a bunch of people who have their own ideas too for characters' ideas. And they said, can we put our characters in your story?
That's cool.
And they said, we also want to pull from these different anime, these different video games. And I just started pulling all stuff in there, and I started bringing other people's characters to life. And that went on from 2003 till 2015, 2016. I basically, like you guys, like I say, you hone your craft. I put in the 10,000 hours during that period of time. I learned the proper grammar. I did all this. I just did that. It worked. No, I did. Hell, my grammar was shit. I learned the proper phrasing, the structuring. And that was it. And then 2 years ago now, 2 years ago, during the COOF, I decided to, okay, I'm going to give this writing thing one more try because school is falling out from under me. The career is direction. It's not going to do anything I really want to do anymore. It's all falling apart because of COOF and everything. The world is upside down. I'm going to go. All I want to do is write. I've got two options. I go legacy publishing, or like John Malin says, you grab a Nor, you make your channel, you build your base, and you put it out there. You get direct contact with your customers. So I started setting that up. I went through the legacy one more time. The agents gave me the middle finger, and then I realized, oh shit, everybody's woke as hell.
Yes, they are.
My goodness, yes.
Legacy publishing,
not the way to go.
Poisoned. I realized, I'm better off on my own. Spent 4 months doing the full rewrite. Did it from March to July in 2019, and then. Then the COOF started the next year later. But either way, you know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And it was real in full swing. And I thought, okay, YouTube, it's now January. It's February 2020. We are a full go on the channel. And then here we are now, almost 2 years later, getting closer to the crowdfund every day.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I kind of had the same experience with the COOF and just Hollywood. I kind of got really burnt out working in the entertainment industry, had some kind of bad experiences with creepers and people, and I just realized that this place is toxic and I don't want to work here.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that is worth like my mental health and like the crap that was happening to me. And I kind of went back to just writing like novels again, which is way more fun in my opinion than writing scripts. So
I would definitely agree.
And in the end, I'm taking everything that I did for those years in Fusion Fiction, which are at least 5, 6 books in there I did in that time. One of them 800 pages. Like Jed said, there is a telephone book one in there because all of them.
I have one of those. The last
they're
one
all one shots. They're all the same series, but they're all one shots. But still, I'm readapting everything into my own universe. I mean, but I have to take out all the video games and anime and D&D stuff that's in there, and I have to redo it. And now. The Chronicles of Rosetta, the first series, is now the foundation.
Cool.
And Jed's got his hands on it right now. He's gonna take a look at it. I will tell you there are Easter eggs and stingers for everything going forward in there.
I love stuff like that. I include a lot of that as well.
This is the foundation. Everything starts here, and the next, I would say, 6 to 10 books are just building the foundation of the universe. Replacing the video games I can't use anymore, like Chrono Trigger, like some Final Fantasy stuff, some anime I can't use. I got to replace Washu. I have to replace Washu, but I can do that. I can do that. I have a way. Anyway, all right.
Well, you made an interesting observation a little bit earlier that I want to carry off on, is that both you and Lady B started in fan fiction, and fan fiction has a very bad reputation these days, not in writing, but I also started in there as well with I was filmmaking before I was writing, and so I remade the entirety of Return of the King in just like my backyard. They're terrible. I mean, they're awful, and it's like from memory. And so I'm trying to my brothers and I are doing like a Gollum, Sam, Frodo scene, and we're like quoting the lines, but they're all out of order and they don't actually make any sense. But it's like, oh, we remember how he says this line. The best one was the first one we did. The first little section we did was when Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli jump off the boats and show up with the Ghost Army. And it was just my two brothers and I swinging our swords at nothing, yelling the lines. And then my little brother, who was Legolas, he climbed up our Suburban and pretended to shoot it, then slid down.
That is really cool because, I'm sure it's better than Rings of Power.
Yeah, I would.
Dude, we all did that. I spent my youth swinging at invisible creatures with swords that weren't there and guns.
Oh yeah, stick is a little boy's best friend for toys. You can
I
make
had croquet.
anything out of stick.
I had the stick halves of croquet mallets. Those were my swords for the longest time.
Ooh, those would be
they were
good.
good and long. They were sturdy too.
Well, we also have Dre from Brutal Planet Comics, who this is his first time on my channel as well. I definitely should have gotten him on a long time ago, but it's great to have you here, man. So excited to talk about your specific history because that's a little bit different than ours. We're authors, book writers, but you're coming from the comic book side, so it's a different perspective that is just going to be really interesting to see how things differ.
It is different, and first things foremost, y'all were talking about grammar. Y'all lucky. English is y'all first language.
Oh yeah, that English is such a hard language.
You know what my first language is? Ebonics. That's my first language. Okay?
I was wondering what adjective you were going to use. I'm like, which ones is he going to use?
That's my first language. So yeah, so
I was confused.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Dre, the Brute Daniels from Brutal Planet Comics. I am the founder, owner, writer, head director, and editor of Brutal Planet Comics. Everything except the art. Praise the Lord. Everything but the art. And I've been writing since the beginning of time. But like my journey, like you said, is a little bit different from you guys. Like I was in the comic sphere forever and a day. But it didn't quite get there quite yet years ago. I tried my hands, believe it or not, at a long form novel many years ago. Before I started well, I always wrote short stories and short comics and stuff, one shots and stuff like that. I've did that forever. But then I was like, hey, I want to go for a long form novel. I was shooting for about 400 pages. Got about a quarter of the way through and realized that I suck. So I was like, no, I'm gonna stick to my visual medium. So comics is my heart. It's my bread and butter. It is literally my lifeblood. Plain and simple. I mean, like that's just where I come from. I'm from the inner city, as you can see. And like a lot of my city and slash nerd culture is the influence of a lot of my writing, a lot of my work. Heavily influenced by 80s, 90s cartoons.
The golden age.
Yeah.
Golden age.
Golden age, yeah. Heavily influenced by that, heavily influenced by a lot of smaller writers that end up being signed by Marvel years ago that never really got the recognition that they deserved. But I've always picked up quite a few of their comics when I was young. And I always like the offshoots, offshoot comics that weren't part of main continuity. Because a lot of main continuity gets messy and then it gets political and then it gets all every which way. But then there's always those independent contractors that are put on and they're just trying to have fun and make a fun story. And that's kind of like where I end up coming from. So I decided to just keep producing comics. And as of midnight tonight, I will be releasing my 7th issue.
Nice.
Nice.
Awesome.
Trouble the Rhythm Within. As you see, my core character in the back. I love it. It's my favorite panel. My favorite panel in all the books.
Yeah.
My favorite panel.
We'll definitely have to take a look at those.
Yeah. It's this one was like my Citizen Kane. Like this story was my Citizen Kane. Like I've written a lot of stuff and other things for other comic producers around the world.
Awesome.
At this point now, matter of fact, I'm doing work for the UK right now.
Sweet.
So
Jealous.
yeah, so it's like I've written for everywhere. I've written for the UK, Argentina, Canada. Like I've written for
That is so cool.
Yeah, all types of different companies, the smaller independent companies that are trying to get their foot in the door, and they come across my work. I'm like, yeah, you're hired, sir. I'm like, oh, okay then. I guess I'm hired.
Yeah, you're the superstar here, then.
Oh,
yeah.
You're more professional than the rest of us. I'm just a goddamn YouTuber right now.
Yeah, for real.
No, it's been a heck of a journey though. There's been bumps in the road, especially with this series because like I started writing the series years ago, but I started producing the series in 2018. and then released the first issue in 2019. Very good response. Really, first issue went really well. Second issue came out maybe 6 months later. Then the third issue, coof. So to say the least, took one of these across the chin. And my printery went down. Like my other production partners, it was over. I like dead in the water. I was like, well, guess I can still write, So like I just got to writing, and then I was like, hey, you know what? I guess I'll revive my old YouTube channel and just start bringing on some of my fellow creatives to talk about their work. So I started what I call the Indie Corner, which Jed has been a part of and Adam has been a part of, to come and share all their great work and the stuff that they've been up to. And I've had countless other guests from all over the world at this point. And it's really, really cool to see it, to give a platform to all my other fellow creatives to share their work and just share like we're all from nerd culture. For if the older you are, back in the day this wasn't cool. It was a lot of it was frowned upon, like, oh my god, you're in the nerd stuff, blah, what I mean? It was that type of thing. And now that it's mainstream but now it's been corrupted in a lot of ways, but there's still a whole lot of great creatives out there that are still doing a lot of good work and that really want to be able to tell their story. And I think that's what's really, really important, is just to be able to tell your story and to write it your way. And what Adam said in regards to the publishing companies, Lord Jesus and the shepherds, it's a nightmare trying to go through mainstream publishing. Absolute debacle. Like I can't even tell you how many rejection letters I have. I can't tell you how many rejection letters I have. Before I was like, you know what? Screw y'all. I'm gonna just produce it myself.
Mention to keep your own profits.
Yeah. Keep my money. So
and they don't own a piece of your IP then.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's really nuts, especially what they want you to give. Because there was one, I'll share this real quick. There was one that really liked my script. This was even before I even started the art. I really liked my script. And he was like, oh yeah, this is really good. This is really good. However, I want you to change this character to this orientation. I want you to change this character to this color. I'm like,
nah, bro, nope.
Like, excuse me? Like, you ain't gonna tell me how to mold my creative vision. You must be high. I was like, nah, baby, you can kiss the rings. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's a journey. And even more so, it's really, really hard right now for the comic industry, because of how, like I said before, politicized, and everybody has to have a message and all that. Blah, blah, blah. Nobody wants to have fun anymore. Nobody wants to have fun. We just want to push our message.
Wait. You're not having fun that Superman Jr. is coming out as gay to the whole world?
I don't want to talk about that.
I mean, that's not fun. That's not fun for you.
Like I've always said, I don't care if you're gay, bi, or woman, black, Mexican, whatever you are, that is not your character.
Nope.
Mm-hmm.
That is not a story. Gay is not a story. Gay is not
It's
a character.
It's a single attribute in a larger whole
that you had no control over. I want to know who you are. I've been
you
on
achieved blackness.
Yes, and I'm like, I remember.
How do I do that?
I was on this panel, and they were talking about like the new characters they're developing, all that stuff, and I was sitting there. And I wasn't a judge on the panel, but I was like one of the correspondents. And they were talking to me like, oh, this is the character. I said, okay, cool. Tell me about this character. First thing they say out of their mouth, well, she's a strong black woman. I said,
that's it. Done.
I said, listen.
Done.
I said, I can see that. Who is she? What is she like? What is her fears? What's her dislikes? What is she trying to overcome? The look that girl gave me, she was like, I'm like,
I haven't thought about it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I haven't really gave it real thought.
That's bullshit.
That's kind of step one.
I know the shape, the feel, the width, the power of every single one of my protagonists. Every single one of the antagonists.
Where you're going with that.
What, you think I was talk about give me the meat, give it to me raw?
Exactly. You're like, I know the shape, the length, the curve.
I specifically started doing that. I thought, okay, I'm gonna turn the angle. No,
Yeah,
no,
you gotta
I
go
know
get the clip in
exactly
here,
how
man.
everybody
need it.
looks. I know exactly how everybody looks, feels, tastes. In every one of my characters. I'm gonna make it dirty every time. See, now I'm gonna make it dirty every time.
I
Oh,
dig.
go for it.
Filthy.
Filthy. But no, I know who my characters are. I know they're at this point, due to the, like I said, the change of being, I know the family trees at this point.
Oh yeah, I always do
As
that.
I
you
know,
should,
I
'cause it's
mean-
your brainchild. You should.
Yeah. What I mean, you got to realize what's going to happen right now. We're talking thousands of years are going to pass with certain books. Certain books are going to happen before other books until the timeline evens out. And it's, I mean, I know who everybody is.
Yeah.
I even know the characters that aren't mine. There are two characters, or in a sense, one character and another guy who is his stable, who, again, this is part of what I'm talking about, fusion fiction period, where they came to me. They had their ideas and they used stuff, but as we have all discussed between myself and these two dudes, I brought their characters to life.
Mm-hmm.
I basically made them who they are, and I want to keep using them. But they're not mine. But I don't want to give them up. Therefore, I've already gotten their permission. And when the time comes, in these early books, I've already had to like I said to Jed, their Easter eggs are going to pop up throughout all the early stuff. I need to start building certain pathways to certain characters and their lines and their families and events.
It's foreshadowing.
Yeah, but some stuff has never been done before, so I'm coming up with new ideas. Very soon, once we're done with the Rosetta Chronicles and I move on to the next ones, I have to start then reaching back out to these guys, and I need to start making ideas, but I need to still get their permission because it is still their characters.
Right.
Even though I know those characters left, right, and center, I know every inch of them, ladies. But hey, some of them are female. Some of them are female. Some are female. Hell, one of his characters he wrote Keone from Tenchi Muyo is his character's wife in the stuff. I have to come up with a replacement for her. So we're going to have to sit down and talk about it. I have to come up with a new one. Point is, I'm going to work with these guys. I am not going to shut them out. When it starts up again, when I start using their stuff in the beginning, because I think it's the simplest way, I'm saying this now, I've already said it, I'm going to work out a licensing agreement with them in the beginning for ideas. Then as things really get going, then they'll get their share of royalties if things really get to a point where that's possible, because it's their characters. Even though I'm the one telling the stories, I created all the stories around them, it's still their characters. They have a right to the piece of the pie. I'm not going to shut out those two guys because, like I said, those two characters are so brilliant and so perfect, especially everything that spawned from them. Why should I have to make up new ones when they're still perfectly serviceable? And I have such a good relationship with the two guys that created them.
That's cool.
So I want to keep working that, and they're so good characters, and they cannot be removed. They're so integral to everything in the real major storyline that keeps going. So.
Yeah, that's kind of my problem, because the last thing I wrote is I kind of stopped writing fan fiction for like 3 years when I was in film school, and then with the coup, like I had started writing this Game of Thrones story, and I was like, I want to see if I can actually just plot this out and have it actually go through like a whole structure and an ending, and actually did it. And then I ended up writing like a 350,000 word novel.
Oh my God.
And I would say it's probably like 80% original work, but I thought about doing that where I was like making it just my own world. And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, I think I just get to start over. But there's just too much to change in that universe, kind of a thing.
But what you could do is you can still pull a lot of key story elements out that are yours.
Yeah,
and a lot of key characters that are yours. Because to go back to the fan fiction, I mean, Jaden Hamilton in the chat, he's talking about how he's got ideas racing his mind, doesn't know what to do. He's open colleges and give him the basics. Fan fiction, and this is my case. Well, Jed brings up fan fiction is a dirty word in a lot of places right now, and it's not quite what it was.
Don't say it in Hollywood.
Yeah, in the 90s and in the 2000s, in the self-contained communities for animes or video games, they were self-contained. Those groups, the fan fiction was good. You go to fanfiction.net. I always called it a sewer, personally.
Yeah, that place is.
It was a sewer.
Yeah.
But in the communities, like in the late 90s through the early to mid 2000s, the Tenchi Muyo community online was a fantastic place before they put out the third OAV, using the original episodes, using the movies and the universe. It was fantastic. Everybody had a good time. And there were major websites. There was one called the Tenchi Muyo Fanfiction Archive, which was where I had my stuff first posted. They put them up there, and then everybody would see it. And I didn't. When I put my first one out there, I wrote the whole thing out first, all 23 chapters. I think it was. It's still here. Actually, I can look it up. I think it's around 400 pages. I had it done before I put it out. I didn't release it bit by bit. I wanted it all done. And that original story came to me in a dream. That's where that one first came from.
That's pretty common. Yeah. I do the same
it started
thing.
with a dream. Cool. But what happened was, but what I'm saying is fan fiction, don't run away from it, because fan fiction provides young authors, young guys and gals who want to get this started. It's the perfect structure. If you are faithful to the franchise, you have the entire world already set out for you. If you are so into it and you understand those characters that you love and their relationships, and you're really into, you know how it all works, you can use them. And the practice is keeping them in character. Don't let them get out of character. And if you're
that's probably the hardest thing.
And if you're going to evolve it, make sure that it's a logical leap based on evidence from the show or the manga or the video game, based on the evidence you have. The lore is king. Based on that, you can grow it. And that's what I did with my Tenchi stuff. And I was famous for a time until I disappeared because I got sick of it, because the OAV, like I said, OAV 3 ruined it all. 4, 5, 6, all ruined it.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because I think you're right that it gives you a good, but there's so much problems with the fan fiction world. Like, I'm getting ready to do a fan fiction series with my friend Alex from the White Cloaks, because he writes fan fiction too. And I'm really hoping we're gonna do a 3-part thing about like the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then I want to take it one step further. I know it is good. I think it works with the good parts of fan fiction, the bad parts of fan fiction, and the really horrible things that we found. But I'm probably going to film that in the next week or two. But I want to take it one step further and go into and like the 4th part of the series will be me like using stuff that I've learned in development and using stuff that I learned to improve my own writing, and going through something that I've written and showing people how they can take their fan fiction to the next level. Because there's so many people that write fan fiction now, and instead of being like original, interesting story, it's just very tropey. There's a lot of self-inserts. There's a lot of just bad writing, and
that is the crime.
Yeah.
That's why if you...
I mean, it's sort of the reasons why people write that. It's kind of...
Yeah. When they take it that aspect, when they do self-insertion, when they use tired ideas, or they're doing it for a virtue signal, then it's just a project of narcissism. That's all it is.
There's actually 2 problems with that as well. Because yes, like me, I don't mind a self-insert if it's written well.
Yeah.
That's always the caveat.
And that's the catch. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna insert myself, but I'm going to be like Adam just said, it's a narcissism. It's a me project. They won't put themselves, if you want to do a self-insert, put yourself through the ringer. Put yourself through hardship, problems, issues.
Don't be a Mary Sue. Don't be a Mary Joe.
Exactly.
Story worth telling.
Exactly. And that's the problem, like you said, with fan fiction. And like what Adam was saying earlier about there used to be a golden age of fan fiction back when it was respectable. Back when it wasn't
porn mostly.
Yes.
I'm so sick of reading that thing. And like you see something, it's like Hurt and Comfort, Dubcon, and it's some gay ships. I'm like, no.
Oh,
no.
Gay ships nearly ruined Supernatural. I'll never forgive them for that.
God, yeah. Shipping used to be a nice thing. Used to be, who's your favorite couple? That's originally shipping was, who's your favorite couple in the show, or do you see the option for these two to get together because it's there? Then it became, who can we randomly pair together to F? Then that's when it went off the rails.
Always two guys.
I know, it's always, why do they want to see dudes do it?
And they're always straight women. I don't know why.
I know.
Well, this is a great conversation. I hate to interrupt, but I do need to say hello to the chat. We haven't done that yet. So
sorry,
now that intros are done.
Okay.
But we are joined by several of my regulars. I see Mike, OBG70, Tranquil Waters, Jaden Hamilton, chatting away some really great stuff. And yes, the Geeks and Gamers editors, aren't paid enough to deal with my shit. They already have a hard enough time reading my articles, let alone
Well,
anything
you created
else.
controversy. Look at that.
I have several times now. We've also got Ruben X, Hail, Dermy Wormy. Great to see you here. And there are several questions in here. There's one specifically about, do you want to confirm or deny, Adam?
I neither confirm nor deny. Listen. I'm older than Jed, but younger. Yeah, Mustang knows how old I am. He knows how old
It's
I am.
not hard to be older than
Listen,
me, though.
my problem is I've screwed up so much in my life that I don't want to think about how old I am because I have so much I still want to do and make up for.
Mm-hmm.
So
There you
I
go.
really
That's a
don't.
good philosophy.
I don't.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, I don't look my age. I do not. I mean, Jed knows how old I am, but I don't look my age, and I'm happy about that. I'm still spry for my my boomer time.
We also have Kayla Dare, and I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce this correctly. Raxus. I hope I say that right.
That's
But
what I
yes,
would say.
you're making a great point. Explain stuff to the story, not the audience, and that's the one of the biggest problems with Rings of Power is they don't know that distinction.
That's
at
a
all.
big problem I've noticed with a lot of shows now. It's like the characters giving exposition for the sake of the audience. And I say a lot in my House of Dragon commentary. It's like Maiden Butler dialogue where it's like they're saying stuff that they should know, but the audience needs to know this, so they're saying it.
Hey, it took me a long time to truly understand show don't tell. I'll admit that. It took me a long time. And suddenly one day I realized I'd done it. Oh, I'm doing it naturally. I'm not even thinking about it. Show don't tell is happening. It's working. So
Cool.
show don't tell. Show don't tell.
And there's something beautiful going on in the chat that is part of why I want to do this, and it's doing this for me as well. Is there's several people saying, "Hey, I'm thinking about getting that back into writing because of this." There's several people who are saying stuff like that, like I need to start again, and that's what this is all about: is inspiring each other on this panel and the people in the chat that this is important. And that's one of the first conversations I wanted to get into. Adam did mention it briefly, but to you guys, why is it important that we get into this sphere, why we do this stuff? Not necessarily from a personal standpoint, not the personal benefits of it, but from an indie sphere. Why do you guys think that's an important thing to cultivate?
Well, there's a bunch of reasons. From my particular genre in particular, as far as like comics is concerned, especially, let me be as clear as I can. We need new writers. We need new writers.
Yes.
The overwhelming majority of comic writers that are in mainstream are trash.
Yes.
First ballot Hall of Fame trash. We need new writers that are creative, hungry, and want to tell something fun or good. Desperately. We desperately need it. I've been in the game a long time, and I've seen a lot of good friends of mine that's been in the writing game or a creative sphere in comics, and they all got burned out because they got tired of being denied and being kicked to the side, and because they're not politically charged or whatever the case may be. We need new blood, and we need blood that's thick and hungry.
Hey, I have a question for you, Ray. Can
sure.
you tell me about the process of actually writing a comic book, and how do you do a script, and like what's the level of like or just how much is it, like a TV script or something like that? I'm just kind of curious.
It's very similar. So when you're writing well, let's say all your ideas are in your head already. Okay, let's just put that out there. Once the ideas are done,
No, where else would they be? I keep mine in my gallbladder. I don't know.
Some of them is in your sphincter.
My
but
heart.
It is. But once you have your ideas ready, or however you process, what we usually do, we use Excel spreadsheets. That's first and foremost. We use Excel spreadsheets to list our characters, their descriptions, what they're going to do, what their character arc will be. So we have that already kind of set up before we even get to the script. We want to have our characters labeled and how we want to use them. And then you're going to have their descriptions in there as well.
Because you don't think about you're going to have a bigger team to communicate with. So that's definitely super important for that. Yeah, it's kind of like filmmaking is like the civil.
100%. And so once you have those spreads ready to go, now we get to our scripting. Now, I come from a more of a theater background. So I use traditional theater directions for what I want my panels to be set up.
That's
so
cool.
I've done I've attempted at screenwriting and stuff like that, but yeah, whatever. But I use those exact same directions, how the scene is gonna look. I use that exact same descriptions, from a director standpoint, and for like characters. I talk about what colors I need to pop and whatever situations they are, especially when you're doing something that's very descriptive, like an action scene. So like I love doing action comics, as you can see. I love doing action comics, and like so in my action comics, I have a background in mixed martial arts.
Oh,
So
how cool.
yeah, so I describe all of the moves and motions within my panel. So if I'm
That
doing
is so cool.
thank you, I appreciate it. Like so if I'm describing a German suplex for the sake of argument, it's so I'd say whatever. Let's just say it's me, and let's say I'm German suplexing Adam because why not? So it will be.
Don't say you've never wanted to.
so it will
Dude,
be described
you're
as,
lucky I don't have a WWE game anymore. Otherwise, I'd make us in there. I'd fire it up and I'd kick your ass.
So I would say Dre is in the foreground of the panel. He is wrapping his arms around Adam around the waist. He is clutching his hands tightly. The grip should be poignant, which means that there should be angles that will be showing the twist in it. He is now flipping overhead left shoulder. Adam is now in the midground of the panel. His arms are spread horizontally. Then
That
you get
is
to the
so
next panel.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Get
And then
that
there'll
crotch
be-
shot. Get that crotch shot.
and then the final the final panel would be let's say if we're focusing on Adam crashing on the back of his neck. So it will be foreground of the panel. Adam is crashing neck first onto the concrete. Arms
That is
are
so
spread horizontally.
interesting. I've never thought about like how that
Yeah.
must come to be, but
Yeah.
it makes so much sense because I know when I was talking to my ex, like he would tell me like I'd have to really explain what I wanted to do because he would sometimes make videos for me and stuff. So definitely you have to be like really good with how you communicate with your other artists and stuff.
Very.
And I mean
Very-
that is
like-
really
and you
interesting because
need
you're not limited like filmmaking or anything like that. You can
Mhm.
really do whatever the hell you want. That's so cool.
yeah.
And it's
And
great to
it's
see
very
the different background. Like you have
Yeah.
that martial arts background. I don't, so I don't necessarily describe my fight scenes in that way. So it's kind of interesting to see that different perspective on something as simple as fighting, which is a very common thing.
Yeah, and you need to do it that way, especially if you are, of course, giving your work to an artist. Because if I just say, let's just say, like you said, like Jed, let's say you're an artist, you have no idea about martial arts, you have no idea what I'm even talking about, and only thing my panel is Andre German suplex Adam. You're gonna look at me like I'm special needs because you have no idea what I'm talking about. But as I describe the panel, even in your own mind, you'll begin to picture it, even if you
Yeah.
have no idea what it's going to be. Based on the description I just gave you, you actually saw me going like this. You saw me flipping over. You saw Adam hitting his head on the concrete.
That's
Yeah.
And that's how
cool.
you do it.
See, similar to Dre, I have a fencing background. So when I'm doing melee combat, yes, not all melee combat is the same as weapons, but I'm able to at least apply all the basics. Got to understand footwork. Got to understand weapon placement. Got to understand what's realistic weapon placement. Nobody in their right mind is ever spinning around going like that. No one's doing that.
I know. I think we all have these secret superpowers. Like I used to be a race car driver, but unfortunately, nothing I've ever written has really used that skill.
That's
set.
dope.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I just find some excuse to do it, to include that.
I
It's like,
know.
oh, for some inexplicable reason, we've got a side quest to a NASCAR, and he's gonna drive real fast, but it's not.
I
gonna be
know.
important.
I kind of want to. I kind of want to do something, but there's a lot of different things about racing that kind of applicable to other things, like the state of mind, like in a fight. Like I remember in that Game of Thrones fanfic I wrote, like one of the things is like I'm not that good at describing fights, but I remember like when I would race against men, especially, and they get that kind of like they'd always describe it as red mist of frustration, and like they kind of get flustered. And that was something that I was really good about not getting when I was racing. So I'd always write my characters like stuff like that. Like he was trying to aggravate the other person. So you just see the red mist and not like pay attention to what he was doing and stuff like that. So try to write what you know.
That's the thing, right? That is probably the sagest thing you could tell somebody. Write what you know, write what you're interested in. There's no point in writing a story you don't give two shits about. That's why, to Dre's point,
exactly.
all these people writing comics these days in the so-called professional realm of DC and Marvel, their stories are shit because they hate that shit. They don't actually like those heroes.
Well,
They don't
sitting
respect
down and talking because that's all they do.
They don't respect
Hallways,
the legacy
man.
of those stories.
That's the new hero of the like fantasy genre. But speaking of things that we know, now I'm really interested in Jed. Like, how did you come to write your story? Because you said that the person in your story has PTSD and he commits suicide. And I mean, if you're going to write something like that, you must have some kind of experience about that. And maybe you could tell us something about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a few major points of my story. The big one is Greek mythology and mental illness, and those are both things that I'm vastly connected to. It started out as Greek mythology, but then went into mental illness. I don't go in a whole lot of details. I did kind of on Dre's show, but I came from a very difficult background. Like I was raised in a cult, like a honest to God cult, and there were a lot of problems there that gave me a lot of issues. So I was suicidal for a very long time in my teenage years, and it was such a bleak outlook that this is the one time I'm ever going to do it. I know it's wrong, but I felt like it worked for the story. I did a self-insert. The main character is a self-insert because his story is built upon the evolution from that feeling. And even like he's out, he's been out of his bad situation for a couple years when the story starts, but he's not mentally out of there. And that was something that happened to me. It wasn't just about getting physically away from the bad situation. It was about divorcing your mind from that situation as well.
Yeah, I kind of relate to that too, because I've kind of had the same experiences. And that's why I was so interested in reading your story, because I know that was always something that comes up a lot with people that write. It's like, I want to write XYZ character having whatever mental health or some kind of handicap or disability, because everyone wants to be inclusive. And I would just get really tired of reading stuff that didn't really reflect real experiences. And I know that you had alluded to it a few times, and I'm really interested to read your book just for that reason alone, because I think it's so much better if it's actually like a realistic portrayal of something like that.
Right. And I've always hated how our society calls mental illness a handicapped, because it's something that with work you can work through in most situations. Like I was able to.
Like you can heal from it.
Right. And it's the whole point of the character's journey is believing it's not a handicap, because I wanted to inverse the classic hero's trope, and the classic hero's journey. He's not taking on this quest to save the world, to save anybody's life, not save his own life, save a life of a friend one, or to save the world. That's not why he's doing it. He's taking on this quest to find something that's capable of killing him, because he's a phoenix, which means he regenerates when he dies.
Oh, so that's cool.
It's all about finding a life worth living and a death worth dying, suicide by heroism. And
that's
so
really cool.
He's just finding something powerful enough to do it. And a few points, he doesn't even realize it at first, but there are ways to kill a phoenix, and he finds out along the way, but he doesn't even think about, oh, this is my chance. So it's like, does he really want it, or is he just going through the motions? So
that's a really good metaphor for that.
And the mental illness is a vital, integral part of his character, and that was important to me if I was going to include it, not just to be cheap virtue signaling like you were talking about. It had to be the point.
That is really cool.
And Jed, this actually proves the point we were talking about earlier: how to do a self-insert the proper way.
Yeah, definitely.
That is how you do it properly. You're not using it as a way to elevate yourself, to be like, look how great I am, look how amazing my
it takes so much vulnerability.
Exactly. And that's how it's supposed to be used properly. Like my main character, Zamir Green, who you see in the background here. A lot of people assume like, oh, he's you. I'm like, no, he's not me. Yes, he has a do-rag, of course. But that's what people from my city, that's the way we dress. That's the way we look. If you go to my hometown in Northwest Washington, D.C., you're going to see a whole lot of me like this. It's a whole lot of me. And it's taking place in a time period where that was very prevalent. But even if you look at the character, it has got nothing to do with me whatsoever. even if there are certain traits, of course, because like you said,
We all do that.
we all do that. There's traits.
Yeah, like I was so against the idea, and I was having a discussion with one of my with my main writing buddy on this, and I was explaining to him something that was really, really important to me that I found where it's like I don't really want to go and be career oriented because I have fibromyalgia and that's hard to deal with. And I've kind of found a lot of personal fulfillment, like taking care of my family and working in my garden and raising stuff in that way. And he was like, he thought what I said was really important. And he's like, you had to find some way of putting that in your story. And I was like, oh my God, I'll never do a self-insert. And he's like, it doesn't really have to be. It's just the idea that you're taking something that is important to you and then making a home for that in your story. And so I'm glad you told me that because I probably would have never included it. But I think that is the important thing, is to find a way where it's like it serves the story and not scenes.
And
it's so important.
I wanted it to be about plot as well. Like, his mental illness is literally the most important thing in the story, because the main villain of the series, her whole motivation is to take humanity and put it in a utopia that is free of human pain, free of any negativity, everything like that. And you'd think the main character would be all on board for something like that because he's fighting to get rid of his pain. But it's a lot about the philosophy of ethics and the psychological nature of, do we have true happiness without true sadness?
Yeah, it's some like Marcus Aurelius level stuff there.
Yeah. So he's fighting to keep his pain through a lot of it as well against this antagonistic force, who she believes she's the good guy, and she has an incredible argument for her, because human suffering is definitely a prevalent issue that is not something that's easy to solve. And her solution was opposed to the main character's philosophy, but it might be the right situation under certain circumstances. So I really want it, like, if I was going to do mental illness self-insert, I wanted it to be so integral that it made a difference.
Yeah, that is interesting.
That's
I know,
important.
like, what I'm doing now, it's just so different from a lot of other things I don't think there's anything I've like this that I've written before. And it's kind of fun for me because I really just trying to, because the times I've written other fanfics and stuff where I'm working at something that already exists, like the Game of Thrones things, like that was a really good writing exercise for me because I did write it like George R. R. Martin wrote Game of Thrones with individual character POV chapters. And that was really important for me to do because it taught me the kind of troubles that you have with that and why, like, there's probably not going to be an end to a Song of Ice and Fire, because once you start writing something like that and there's a lot of characters, it just blows up the size of your story so much. So when I went to write the fantasy Western, I initially had it like with all of the characters at once. And it's basically follows a young kind of cowboy character named Kit, and then his sister, his twin sister, and then his elder brother. And then I had them all initially in the story. And then when I started thinking about it, I thought that, you know what, it's like almost each one of these stories it's like a different sphere of the world. So I broke it up and said, like, hey, if I want to do I'm kind of thinking I'd do it as a trilogy. And then the second book could be focused on the brother and the sister. And then maybe the third book is all of them working together. So I'm really trying to get my own stuff to be like pretty tight and work on the story and just the mechanics of actually writing something that I can finish and edit and get out. So
it's always important. I mean, whenever I do anything, I know my beginning and I know my end.
Yeah.
My end. Even all the stories rolling around my head for the past 2 decades, the endings haven't changed, and neither have most of the beginnings. It's all set. Now, have the middles changed? Yeah, the middle has to change because sometimes maybe I experience something new and I have a new perspective I can put in there, or maybe I've decided to change one particular character story, or in perfect fact, as I'm rewriting everything now and redoing everything, some characters aren't going to be there anymore. I don't have to deal with somebody's lame-ass character that they stooped in a story that they said they were going to write but never did, and then I had to write about the story events that they never did. Sorry. No, that's a problem.
That's personal, Adam. That's personal.
Well, I was over-exaggerating, but you got to understand, when you're working by yourself, you have complete control. But when you're working with others, sometimes if they've done something or if they do something off camera, and like I said, during the fusion fiction period, one person in particular, I'll just call him Caveman, because that's what he was nicknamed by somebody else I knew. We'll call Caveman. Caveman had a lot of good ideas here and there, but he was like a shotgun. He was just spray shotting everywhere. and didn't understand what was going to happen, and then didn't understand what I was trying to do sometimes with some of his characters, and he would get pissy and moany, and everything was always a fight with him. And then he would introduce random characters from random games or anime that was whatever his current hot obsession was, and then I somehow have to work it in there. And then he's telling me, I want this stuff to happen later on. I was like, okay, so now you want her to be gay later on. All right, I don't know. We're fine. We'll get to that. Fortunately, I never had to get to that part because I never got to that stuff. I get to, but the thing is, I get to eliminate all his random shit now and replace it with my own random shit that actually makes sense. But it's important to understand when you're working with people how to cooperate properly, as opposed to when you're yourself and you have complete God control over everything. You know where it's all going to go. And that helps a lot when you know where it's going to go and nobody else is coming in there throwing a monkey wrench in saying, oh, great.
Yeah.
I rarely had to retcon anything, but when I did, it pissed me off because somebody did something. It's like, oh, shit. Now I got to go back and I got to solidify that happened. Now I got to go back and make sure that I account for this. Oh, that's why these two characters are acting this way because, they had an encounter, maybe a sexual one that they regretted. Now I got to account for that. Or, this happened. So it's so much easier when you're on your own.
Yeah, we do a bunch of retconning, pretty much.
Yeah, it's terrible. Or not so much even, people wouldn't see it as retconning. For me, it was retconning because when it came out, I had retconned it, but I had to retcon it with myself.
Yeah.
Because I had to change parts that were perfect before. I mean, it's frustrating, especially when one guy says, oh, I don't want him to be like that. But we've been building that for years, dude, through several stories. Now you want to change. Oh, now you want to add this special ability. Because you wrote about it in your note form that you never put out to a story. Now I have to account for that ability and why we're not using it in the big bad battle at the end of this book. Oh, I have to throw away a line. Can you transform into this? Sorry, I'm burned out from before you got here. Great. But the fact that I have to do that in the first place, it's frustrating.
So I don't think I could ever work with anybody else. Like, my dream is to write for Doctor Who, but it's just be a nightmare. I would never be able to work with the studio like the BBC.
I know BBC is horrible. I've heard stories from my ex, but like I'm just like laughing because you have a TARDIS in there, and my ex is from Scotland, and he I was wandering around there with him, and they do have those phone booths there, but like, do not under any circumstances go into them. Like, people do things in there.
Yeah, it's San Francisco inside the box.
They are not bigger on the inside in real life.
Speaking of that, the best girlfriend I ever had a few years ago, for my birthday, she bought a TARDIS dress, and she just ran up to me and was like, hey, guess what? And she'd whisper in my ear, I'm bigger on the inside.
Oh, God.
Nice.
That's like if you wanted us to do some Lord of the Rings nerd, and you're like, you come in there and like wear a dress and be like, speak friend and enter.
And enter. That's cool. No, I think that was the moment I decided I was going to propose to her.
Just don't say precious. Just don't say precious. Just you're gonna ruin it. Don't say precious.
But, carrying off something Adam said, it is something that we talk about a lot on our channels these in the modern day, and something that I have written about is ways to incorporate messaging, themes, allegory, and social modern commentary into a story that makes sense. Like, for example, I have a major trans character in my book, and it ties into the story, and it's important for a specific character's journey who interacts with that person. How do you guys, when you approach a situation like that, where you think like, hey, I need to have this metaphor or something for something that someone might construe as modern messaging? Is there a way to do that right, in your opinion? Or like, how would you go about something like that?
Absolutely.
I got an interesting thing because my Western ended up starting like that. It's like I got this idea of reading fantasy, and I wanted to write like something that would kind of reflect the modern world's kind of move toward transhumanism and away from nature, or the kind of idea that like scientism is becoming a religion and stuff like that. And I first started kind of thinking of this pseudo like fantasy sci-fi thing, and then the actual ideas just came into the Western, because when I started, I kind of left that idea, the initial like thing, and came in, and when I was writing the Western, I'm like, this could actually really work if there's like within the magic system, if there's like a kind of a the system of magic is something that usually like takes for out of nature to derive the power versus something that gives it back. And so then the main character's kind of journey is to realize his power and figure out how he can use it in a way that's not going to be destructive. And I think it ended up working out to me in a way that I didn't expect at all. So I was really surprised and excited, where I'm like, this is totally the original theme I wanted, and I didn't even try to do it. So I love it as a writer when something like that happens and you're just like, wow. Like
the organic nature. Just
Yeah.
exactly.
yeah.
It
it's
works
kind of
same
like
first,
the happy medium between doing like discovery writing and outline writing, when you kind of do enough of an outline that the discoveries start coming. So
In my opinion, it comes from the characters. I don't.
Definitely.
Here's the thing: my stories are pure good versus evil. That's my thing. It's high adventure. I'm not looking to talk about social issues. I'm not looking to talk about this or that. But if a character somehow, if they develop in a certain way, and I can talk about a mental issue breakdown. I mean, there's a character. She's way far down the line. It's going to be my version of somebody else's character, because that has to happen now. Some characters, they're integral. I'm making my own versions now. Let's just say she's on the losing end of a love triangle. She'll be on the losing end of it. And it was something she always believed was going to be her right. That guy was going to be her right. In the aftermath of that particular story, in the in-between and in between the next one, especially when they're older, she suffers she gets depressed over it. She suffers an event where she falls into the hands of a entity that basically grapes her brain, breaks her down, gets into her mind, screws her up. And this is somebody else's idea. I'm taking parts of it. I'm going to make it better. This is something, and I'm familiar with it because this is one of those instances where he did it all off camera, and I had to incorporate it later on. So I'm intimately familiar with it. Therefore, it is sort of mine, because I had to deal with the aftermath of her behavior and her self-destructive behavior. Therefore, like Jed points out, you're going to write, this isn't mental illness, but it's a form of mental self-mutilation in a way. She's doing everything wrong. She's cutting out everybody that cares about her, and she's doing everything possible wrong. All she cares about is feeding on the rage that's inside her. And through the 3-book series its overarching title is Odyssey. In that series, she's going to have to come to terms with it, and faced with right front and center of the love triangles that she lost, of them being happy and suffering their own problems, but still. So I'm not looking to do it, but if it develops in a character, I'm going to roll with it.
Yeah.
But I'm doing over everything. Of course, what I'm doing is always, it's good versus evil. I'm looking to give you a high adventure. I'm not looking to give you gray area, this and that. Through that, classical themes of politics and governance will come into play. But I'm not going to talk about modern day this, modern that. I'm not going to talk about capitalism versus communism. No, I'm going to talk about dictatorship versus freedom. The classic stuff. I'm going to talk about betrayal versus loyalty, but I'm not going to talk about just horrible things that people do to each other on a regular basis in the Monday world. I'm not going to use, and you guys can all appreciate this, I'm not going to use modern day terminology, modern day vernacular. You're not going to see someone say F-bomb in my book. You're not going to see shit.
Same here. That's kind of a deal breaker for me.
You're not going to see that. I work very hard to come up with other words. When I'm writing, a common thing, okay, here comes Google, bringing up Google, synonym for this. I do that all the time because I want to break up the use of the common words we all use, but not something that's way out there. But it comes from the characters, and that's something that I've realized more and more.
I think like theme and stuff like that's probably like the last thing I'd be worried about, because I think that at the beginning, like the story, the logical consistency, focusing on things that happen, making sure things aren't, and then this happened, and then this happened, and that are like more, this happened because of this happened, therefore this.
Well, at the end of the day, it's the story still comes first. Like Adam, he was talking about, it doesn't
Yeah.
make sense most of the time for his setting, and that's how he built his world. So that's how it works. Me with mine in modern day, I
Yeah.
kind of had to a little bit, but whenever I was specifically talking about a actual current day issue, I showed good characters on both sides of an issue just to incite conversation, not to have a stance. Like there was
Yeah.
a few different situations where that was the case. Like I didn't make it was important to the story for a certain point of it, and I didn't make it a big deal, but there was a certain portion on police brutality and what that meant to different characters. And the one that Jaden Hamilton's talking about in the chat, one of my main characters, she's a lesbian, and I take her from a very different perspective. She was sexually assaulted as a child repeatedly. And so that's why she was gay. It was more like it was too traumatic to be straight at that certain point. And so the scene he's talking about is she's broken. It's after the trans story arc with this other character that she's interacted with. And she's questioning all her life decisions. She gets wasted and she has to say, like, who am I as a person if I'm not this, if this isn't my identity? So she's just broken. And so decisions are
Wait,
she's not making any correct
There's no
decisions.
tempest within her.
No, no tempest within her.
I couldn't help it.
And you all have made really, really good points when it comes to putting stuff in like that, maybe modern day or whatever the case may be. Me, it's a little bit different because I actually have an actual visual medium.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and it's just like me, I'm not a political guy. I never have been, never will be. I can give two squirts of piss personally. But one thing I have noticed that's easy, it's like Adam was saying, like it will come from the character. It wouldn't be me intentionally putting a character in a particular position that would then push a narrative.
Yeah.
It will be done naturally. For instance, I'll give an example. There's a actually I'm in the midst of writing a little story right now. I'll just give you a little sneak peek. There's a particular character who happens to be female that thinks that she can be a hero because she's seen it, but then she starts tasting the real life of heroism and what it actually means. So the growth that she's actually going to develop will be how to become a hero. She's going to be put on her butt cheeks repeatedly. But of course, modern day, she would already been great already, and everything just comes so easy. But no, but this is the idea of true feminism. Feminism is earned. Feminism can be a very beautiful thing. Not as
and there's more than one conceptualization of feminism, like what I was saying with that character that my friend was telling me I need to put in my story, because that's how I view feminism, is that like there's like I think my words to him were there was nothing more noble than being able to take care of your children and your family and provide for them and create like a loving, nurturing environment for them to grow up in. So I think there's like just so many different things you could do. And speaking of which, I have to ask you, Dre, like, sure. I see musical notes in the back and it's obviously treble. Can you tell me about that? Because I'm also like, I also started out as a musician, and I think that's interesting because I think there's a lot of, it's another art form, and I think there's a lot of kind of like crossovers with music and writing. And how did you work that in your story?
You have a fancy eye, my lady, a fancy eye. Indeed.
Yeah, I used to play the French horn, and I did like an audio engineering certificate when I was at UCLA too.
Excellent. So my original character, Treble, is the entire joint is an action adventure musical.
Awesome.
That's the entire comic. So like the idea behind it is that he is a DJ.
Oh, cool.
He is a DJ, and he gets infected by a water-based virus called the chills. And he gets the ability to get a different superpower based on the genre of music he listens to.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Have you
what does country give you?
Yo, Jed, I'm actually writing the country series right now.
Really? Wow. Oh, that's the music I listen to.
Actually writing the country one right now. So in this this arc is gonna be 8 issues long. The 7th is dropping at midnight, or might be uploaded. Yeah, it's actually uploaded now. So it's there now. So I cover rap, rock, classical, dance hall, which is reggae, and techno. So I cover these 5 genres.
That's so cool.
In this, and each one is based off of the mental, emotional, psychological, and stereotypical ideologies behind music.
That's so neat. Because I was like, have you ever read or heard of like The Name of the Wind, like series?
No, I
fantasy
don't
world
think I
books.
have.
I was so excited because I thought, oh, it's magic, and there's a guy that's a musician, and then there wasn't really much about magic and music in the story. But I was like, when I was coming up with my Western thing, I was kind of like the magic system would focus on like vibrations and natural harmonics and stuff like that.
Yes.
So I was like, I think that would be so cool if someone did magic, but with music, and it sounds like you did. So
Yeah,
I
pretty much.
really want to read this now.
Except I went the science route. It pretty much
Yeah.
is the same.
I
So,
think I know
like,
what you mean by like the frequencies and like when they've done experiments with what kind of states and certain, I know like from like audio engineering that like certain frequencies will produce certain emotional states, and
yes.
that's really
Yes.
interesting to take that kind of an idea. Like that is so cool.
Yes. So
I definitely want to read this now.
Yeah, so I come from a bit of a musical background myself. I used to try to play guitar. I wasn't that good, but I come from a family of singers.
Oh, cool.
So I've jazz singer. I do. I used to do rock opera. So
Oh,
that used to be a thing. So I trained my vocals, all that great stuff, blah 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 blah, public speaking, yada 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 yada, the whole 9 yards. So I wanted to inculcate my love of my city, my culture, nerddom, and music all in one. So I even took the time to write original song lyrics.
dang.
It's in the books. So
That's
like
so cool.
when he puts on his headphones, he's listening to the music. We have what he's listening to
Oh, wow.
coming up, and you'll see how it affects his body. So let's say, for the sake of argument, I don't mind. This Jones been out for like 3 years. So like rock music, he gets an adrenaline boost, enhanced strength. He grows in size and he
That's
gets more
cool.
aggressive. So and like me, I like to use colors because it's a visible medium. So his hands will glow red.
That is so cool, and it
Yeah.
makes sense too. See, that's what I was thinking, because I was thinking like audio engineering, and I hate to say this because it's silly, but like, you know, those good vibes only people. And I'm just like, I think it's true because I'm a little bit of a witch myself, and I go outside in my plants and I spend a lot of time meditating in my garden and trying to put my energy forth into what I grow. And I can really sense when things are in harmony then. So I'm like, well, what if this was a magic system and it was all based on like natural vibrations and literal vibrations of sound and stuff like that? So I started thinking about that too, and like temperature, because everything's a waveform.
Yes, everything
So
is.
that's so cool. I'm just really blown away by that. What gave you that? What was your inspiration for that?
So it was a couple of inspirations that went into it. Like I said, like a lot of my family are musically inclined. So that was pretty much that was pretty much where I got the idea of like, oh, writing and all that stuff like that for the songs. So but it was a question I had when I was a kid, actually. I was a kid because I was reading the first issue. Actually I have that issue #1 of Static, which became a cartoon later on called Static Shock later on in like 2000s or whatever. And he was what was called a bang baby. That was his what can I call that, faction. He was a bang baby because it was like a big bang that gave him his powers. So in my city in Washington D.C., there is a huge water treatment plant on a road called 295, and it smells like absolute death every time you drive by there. Absolute death. Roll up your windows, blast your AC, don't make a difference. So I pretty much had it planned that what if somebody legitimately put a mutagen in the water? Nobody would tell. You can't smell it. So you put a mutagen in the water, and the villains of this story want to test this mutagen on a small city. Washington D.C. is not that big. Small city, to see what happens, to see what chaos will reign. So as the story progresses early in the first issue, we come to understand that people are falling ill, but it's only a particular blood type. People with O negative blood are the only ones that's being affected by it.
I better not drink the water.
I'm gonna get powers.
Hey, Adam, you right down the street.
Superhero!
I'm on
Get the
edge.
radioactive
I'm gonna
spiders.
get powers.
You right down the street, Adam. So because I did it based on the blood type, I did the research on what blood types are in my city and what is a small enough percentage that I'll be able to give my character his powers and actually grow his rogues gallery without it feeling random.
I like that. That is
Yeah.
so cool.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a two things about that. One, rogues galleries, villains are rough
Yeah.
because one, you have to run that line, and I'm gonna have to run a very large gauntlet going on of villains that are going to come and go, but then ones that are going to come back, and over sometimes thousands of years, or ones that are hinted at for a long time, or particular big bads that they're going to keep resurfacing for one reason or another. Even though you may think they're done, I hope that I convincingly create a situation. So like Dre says, creating a rogues gallery, for lack of a better term, it's rough, but it's fun.
Yes,
And
villains are the
especially when
best.
you especially when you get to that point when you bring them all together. Oh,
Yeah.
we've gone through a whole bunch of stories, and each of these villains got their ass kicked one way, shape, or form because our hero group used this. What if X villain that I've been teasing for maybe 9 books now in the shadows has now plucked this one and that one and this one and there, and also juiced them, and they are now on the equal level from our very powered up heroes at this point. Oh, what a rumble we will have. And I could say one particular rumble, without real spoilers, one point of story, the very first time they all throw down at this point in the series, our heroes get their asses handed to them because they are unprepared, because they are not as strong at this point. Leveling up, they're already really strong. Leveling up must happen. So villains are a tightrope walk of the good kind and bad kind. Some are going to come and go. I mean, I realized for one story in particular, because I was rushing it at one point, I really gave very little to the main villain's henchmen. They needed more, so I get another chance this time around to go back and give them a little more girth, a little more substance. But to your point, when you're talking about music, it's funny. I enjoy music as much as the next guy, but I'm not hardcore. But when it comes to creativity and music, Lady B, you said it in the chat. I saw. I make soundtracks for everything. I have a soundtrack.
Totally. I've been writing. If you guys, I felt really bad because I'm the only one that didn't have a writing sample, and I thought, oh heck, read the prologue of the Western I'm writing. And all when I was listening to that, I was listening to those like ASMR sleep videos of like thunderstorms.
Every single,
it was awesome.
I wish you gotta understand. Part of what I do when I see this stuff in my head, being an anime guy, I see it like anime in my head. I have to break a very bad habit going forward, not to have people yelling named attacks. It was an old young thing I did. Okay, you can't be yelling a named attack. You can have the attack be named. You can't be yelling it. Can't do that. It's in an anime. But it doesn't change the fact that anime influenced me greatly. So I have worked out for a lot of the stories. I have opening sequences, and I've actually put them to popular openers from my favorite anime over the years. But then you go through it. I have picked stuff from major soundtracks, all across the board, special songs, normal songs. I build the soundtracks to my stories, and a lot of time, I think I've mentioned this in the past, I don't keep notes when I'm writing something. It's all up here. But certain things are organized by the soundtrack. That particular scene, that's been in place for so long. I've gone over it so many times, basically penning it beat for beat to that track the best I can. At certain points, if you read it and start at the right point, it will hit the proper points in that track in the story, and it works beautifully. Edited to fit it at times to make sure, okay, that line is unnecessary. I can shrink it up, fits perfectly, works great. That's how that's where music comes into play for me. It is my soundtrack. It is also my waypoint. It is the fixed points where I remember, and it keeps everything in line. I because of the way my memory works, the broad story strokes, I don't need to write it down. Now, I need to write down a lot of names at times because I come up with so many wacky ass names. I forget how they're spelled. Jed, you're going to read a particular capital in the book. I changed its name 2 times in the writing because I didn't write it down once, and then I wrote it down again, and I thought, well, shit, okay, this has to be the final version of it because it's got to work that way. When it comes to names, I keep notes, but as far as story, I don't keep notes. But the music, the soundtrack,
I don't
they
know
keep
how
me in
you
line.
How do you not keep notes? That was
I
something
know.
I learned like early on that I have to do when
I did it originally. I did it when I did the fanfic stuff.
That's the thing. Adam's a savant. Y'all ain't know that. Y'all ain't know he was.
No, I did it for the fanfic
stuff.
This
for fools.
There were notes. In the beginning, there were notes for the fanfic stuff, but I told you guys I have partial photographic memory. I can. I have
lucky bastard.
When I see an image or something, it's in there. I can see it, and then when I'm writing, I see it as I'm writing it. It plays out behind my mind's eye. Therefore, That's how. So it kind of
Dude.
that's how it sticks. And when I have the soundtrack, I see the entire scene.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
plays out
do the
like an
whole
anime in my
director
head.
thing, and I can kind of see the shots and how I would
Yeah.
frame it and stuff like
I
that.
do shots too.
But what I'm saying
multiple
is,
Hey,
angles.
that
But
as
my,
it
my
developed over the
outline for
years,
my
it sticks. That's how it sticks with me.
Yeah.
It's the partial photographic memory.
Yeah.
That's the best way to explain it.
No, for my first book, my outline was 150 pages long. I need my outlines.
150-page outline? Jesus.
Well,
hey,
the
what are you
first
writing,
draft
the
was
Bible?
the first draft of that book was 800 pages.
oh my
So
goodness.
I
Yeah,
needed
you
that.
are.
I got it down to 650. The published version is 650 pages, but it's really interesting to see how much music actually ties into everyone here, because I don't incorporate it into the story, but in my writing process, I do in some really weird
Definitely.
ways. Like for book 2, I was exclusively listening to 1800 sea shanties the whole time.
Oh my
I don't know why, but
Oh,
really
sometimes there has to be a particular track. I will log on to something that is keeping me focused on what I'm doing, and it will run for 3 hours if I'm in a writing mood. There's yeah, I've got
Yeah,
those.
I
That
can
happens.
usually listen to like music that doesn't have words. I don't know, as I've gotten older, and like I think it's something to do with having fibromyalgia, because I used to listen to music with words when I'd write, and I just, because like when you have chronic pain, it's like your half part of your brain is processing like a CPU. It's sent to processing pain signals, so I don't think like I always have like as much concentration and power of focus as I used to. So it's like everything I pick is a lot more calmer than it used to be, which is kind of sad, but I have my moments.
Yeah, no, my sea shanties, they're bangers, man. The reason I did it is the first like quarter of the book is very seafaring. Like he's set into this pocket future where he's like the whole world is destroyed, the world is a desert, so they live by being like a fisherman basically, and so they knew all these ancient songs, so they're singing it, so I'm getting in the mood singing it with them. But you actually make an interesting point, Dre, about asking if I am writing the Bible. I quote the Bible a lot in my book because the main villain is possessing Jesus Christ. So
Whoa!
it gets complicated sometimes. Like when he's messing with the main character's head, he puts him on like the Sermon on the Mount, and he has to listen to part of the Sermon on the Mount before they talk to each other.
That's dope.
But yeah, Timorian is who I call the character. Jesus Christ's real name in my story is Timorian. And I was really worried about that because I didn't want it to come across as anti-Christian or anything like that. That was something that really worried me. But Jaden Hamilton, he's actually read the book and he's very Christian. And he said he really liked how I did it, the way I portrayed it, because Jesus isn't a villain. He's just possessed by the first book villain, Kronos. So,
and we have plenty of characters that are Christ-like figures. Countless. There are Christ-like figures.
Yeah, there's so many.
Yeah,
Wheel of Time.
Yeah, well, it's also interesting. Sometimes you're dealing with people. I one person I had to deal with when she wanted her characters put in. She was very religious, and she didn't want her characters to worship any god. Because remember, I'm dealing with fantasy at the time. I had D&D gods in there. I had my own gods I was making up. I had other things. And she said, "No, I don't want them worshiping any sort of god." I said, "Okay, I will make sure she doesn't do that." And the way I would put in certain phraseology to, as some people would say, "Oh, God damn," and stuff like that, I would do other things, and she was really appreciative of that. So there is a way to put spirituality in for people who are faith-based, but they don't want it to interfere with the story. I mean, I'm just saying, I understand what you're saying. There's a pathway to always do it.
Yeah, you know what that reminds me of is when we were doing Mordor Country, and when Matt was explaining what the Silmarils are and how they came to be and how they were like, and what I was kind of trying to say, but he kind of interrupted me a little bit, but was I could still see from like Tolkien being a Catholic how that was this sort of like kind of like, I think it was a redemption story or something like that, but I definitely thought that was a good way of doing it, where it's accessible to everyone and isn't going to turn people off by going a little bit too much into one religion or the other.
It's always a hard thing to do and not come across preachy. And it was a big thing with my book, especially with the main villain being a Christian figure. And I wanted to take the Greek mythology aspect from a religious side of things. Like the main character, before he knows the gods are real, he's already a modern day worshiper. So I figured out how modern day people worship the Greek gods, how they do libations, prayers, sacrifices, how that looks in the modern day. And I very much took it from a faith-based perspective.
Yeah,
So
that's cool.
for them, like it could come across as religious fiction the way I tried to craft it, and
Yeah.
that could be a little bit disconcerting for some people, especially with the villain being of a different religion. So religious fiction with another religion as the villain, that's something that I had difficulty
Yeah,
balancing.
you're just like, I
but-
need it.
But it made so much sense to me. Like I normally wouldn't have made Christianity the villain or the Jesus Christ figure the villain, but when Jesus Christ came to prominence in like 30 AD, that was when the decline in paganism happened. The same, roughly the same few hundred years. So it made perfect sense for why the gods were no longer in power was because of the advent of Christianity. So I tried to at least make it narratively justified.
Yeah,
before.
that's really interesting because I used to do a lot of historical reenactment. I was in an ancient Roman reenactment group, and when you kind of look at like why Christianity became popular, it's really interesting because a lot of it was like socioeconomic, and I think that if you look at it that way and try to get away from the dogmatic aspects of it, you can see a different way of using it.
Yeah, like Constantine, he was not a Christian, but he pretended to be for his own safety. The Council of Nicaea was a scam.
It was also what he did also is that period of time, he just wanted everything on his war banner. He wanted everything because it was just, it's on my war banner. It's bringing me luck, I guess. I want everybody to know that I have that behind me. Those Roman history classes come in handy. They come in handy knowing how that stuff works. Yeah, he wasn't a true believer. Yeah, Constantine was not a true believer.
No, absolutely not.
It was just it was a tool. It was a tool.
I want to get like an interesting book I'm reading right now is The Name of the Rose, and it's so interesting because there's so much history of like the Catholic Church in like the early 1300s and stuff just thrown in there, but it's all part of the story. So I was just like, wow, that is so interesting.
I'll say AD too. F to CE crap. AD. Crap.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with tradition, even if it's not of your religion. Like I'm not Christian, but I'm gonna say Christmas to my dying day.
Oh, I do too. I mean,
I'm Jewish and I celebrate Christmas.
It's so
We've always done it in my house because it's a fun holiday. It is. Well, I get Hanukkah. Well, I don't get a ton of Hanukkah, but always a little bit of Hanukkah. But then it's Christmas because it truly is. It's not about the religion for me. It's about being good to one another. It's that one time a year where you say that little bit of smile. You say Merry Christmas to somebody. I make it a point when during that week, I say Merry Christmas when I check out of a store. I say Merry Christmas. I say thank you. I say have a Happy New Year. I say all that because you know what? It puts a smile on somebody's face. It's that time of year we're supposed to be just a little bit better than your normal grumpy ass self.
Exactly.
Jaden is talking about how my Jesus figure was born. He's the son of Kronos and Gia that put into the Virgin Mary. Yes, it's a bit much what I did there.
Gia? You mean Gaia?
Gaia. There's different pronunciations.
Okay.
I always prefer Gia, but I know it's incorrect.
Gaia is the Roman one, right? That's the Roman pronunciation.
It's more of a Roman one. Yeah, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
There's a lot of different pronunciations.
I won't play word Yahtzee. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, and the pronunciation is a battle I fight with my publishers a lot because my main character's name is Aryan, and they say no, you need to say the pronunciation is Aryan. Just like I know I mean, like I get what you're saying, but it is an actual Greek name that was pronounced this way, and it's that his name's that for a reason. It's like I get what you're saying with what it kind of sounds like, but it's what it is.
Yep.
It's my story, damn it.
It's my story, damn it. Just like Dre was talking about. And getting back to Dre stuff, I want to see if anybody has any visual stuff. I want to talk about the art and how it ties in a little bit because how we're talking about the music ties in. If he has any visual aids, how he wants to talk about it.
Oh, give me a hot second.
Yeah.
I have something right here. One thing I really like about fantasy novels, and I haven't always been a fantasy fan. this is like a new development in my thing. I was more of a sci-fi picture, but if I'm like, if it has a glossary and it has a map, I want to read
Maps
it
are
more.
great.
And so one of the things I started doing early on was drawing a map. So like, I felt like I had to redo this because my writing buddy, was like, it doesn't make sense how the mountains are east to west. Like, that's not how the globe works. And I'm just like, shut up. But yeah, so I was like, well, this is how I originally drew it.
Here, let me
And I have
full screen
like,
you.
oh, like this is my there we go. Like, this is a big mountain, and it's a Western a story where they go out into the mountains. So I just thought I'd be really wise with my friend and say, like, shut up. Like, this is the top of the map now. But I have a really fun like time drawing that because like when I was writing my story, I wanted it to be like the political organization to be different than just like feudalism. And then I started reading about early Italian history in the Renaissance, and they're like, oh, city states. And I like the idea of city states. So that's how I did it, where like there's different like city states basically. And then there's the aristocracy of magic using people that kind of take over it and create an empire. And so I'm kind of setting up the seeds for plot seeds later when the states and the people that live under the magic using aristocracy are going to want to seek freedom, and they're kind of explains the Western expansion, because that's probably the hardest thing about writing a Western is you're not only like a Western is like the setting and you have certain themes that are always there. And I really, really, really didn't want to write like a Western in the sense of like Dresden Files or something where it's like it's just the American West and there's supernatural elements. I wanted it to be something different where I was just dealing with like the thematics, because I initially noticed that when I was reading fantasy is that it had a lot of thematic similarities with Westerns, and I'm like, that would be really cool just to create like a sort of a Western world. And so that's basically the setup I had, and drawing the map for me was really important because if I figured out the political situation and kind of the need for people to like expand because there's too many people in the area, and kind of figured out why people couldn't move and what was the limitations, it kind of made things make more sense in my own world and kind of made me help me make a better plot. So the map for me was really important.
Yeah. I really wish I could justify a map in my story, but it's contemporary on Earth. I think for the 5th book, there's an excuse I can because part of it takes place on Mars, a city on Mars, so I could justify it that one. But now for the first one. But I love how you actually thought through the way you were doing it, like doing research. And that's kind of the same way I went about it with my artist. We researched mental health institutions, and a big thing that they do for heavily depressed patients is have them draw their emotions. And a common art style that these people choose is this kind of black, scratchy line style that we got. And so we wanted it to reflect the character's state of mind. If any point throughout the story he gets a little bit better, there's less scratchy lines, more traditional artwork, and it evolves with his emotional state. Like, see, this one is a lot less black, scratchy line because he's doing better at the time. And some of this is from my first book, second book. Yeah, this is the lesbian we were talking about in the chat, Charlie, and her which is familiar. But cool. And then that's Jesus. It's really dark there because the Earth, the atmosphere was taken away from the Earth.
Oh wow.
This is a major plot point that I can't really tell you guys about. It's like the big, I hate to say it, but mystery box that's revealed in part 12.
Oh, Lord.
Because throughout the story, he's having visions of this event, and he has to find out like why he's having these visions and what it means for himself. And
this, I wouldn't call that a mystery box. You're putting it's a puzzle. I'd call that a puzzle.
Yeah, a puzzle.
It's a mystery.
See, the black scratchy lines are the worst here because this is his worst moment as a child.
Did you draw that yourself?
Oh, no. I hired someone. I do stick figures as well. But yeah, this is one of the monsters he fought in early. This is an actually Greek mythological monster that not a whole lot of people know about.
What's it called?
So they don't actually have their
own
bear
pig.
It's man bear pig. That is man bear
pig. So it's two brothers, so they don't really have a species name, but their mom was like flirting with the god she wasn't supposed to be, so the god's girlfriend cursed her to go screw a bear, and so she had bear kids.
Cool. I know with my story, I wanted to use like traditional North American kind of cryptids and stuff like Sasquatches and Wendigos and
Oh yeah, I
chupacabras.
love Wendigos.
And I wanted to do that, but then the problem was if I'm not putting this in an actual American West story, it doesn't make sense to use the names because they have cultural like connotations. So the names are getting changed. And there's a dragon too, but it's more of a North American dragon. So we're talking about Quetzalcoatl kind of a style. So
oh yeah,
I'm
that's
really
something I had to
excited about
research as
getting
well.
this.
The dragons in Greek mythology are basically giant snakes, and so that was
Yeah.
a weird thing for me to get used to. But this is actually the moment he commits suicide. This is what it
Oh,
looks
wow.
like from his perspective,
Wow.
and that's Aphrodite being chased by Jack the Ripper. She back in the 1800s, the goddess of beauty gets scarred so heavily that she doesn't believe she's beautiful. So that's a big arc with her.
Oh,
And this
that's
is one
cool.
of the main monsters from the end of the first book. But it looks like Adam has his map pulled up for us. He loves
version.
this. This thing is great.
It's
Oh, that's
This is
cool.
1.0. This is 1.0. I did I sketched out the entire thing in my stick figure fashion long time ago, and this is when we did one of our publishing attempts at one point. My mom, who's has talented as a copy artist, she's a good copy artist. This is what she did for me to get it all
That's
done.
cool.
Now this is 1.0. A lot of these cities and things aren't different. Like there's no hills here anymore. Some of this different. The rivers are a little closer together going through this capital here. Some of these cities aren't around where like that. These islands aren't there anymore. They're gone. There is no Great Bridge anymore. But either way, you get it. This is one of the two continents on the world of Rosetra. Off to this over here is the Great Island of Colne, which I can say because it's mentioned in the first book. There's no spoilers in that. But knowing where your characters are going, in my opinion, is important. And
Yeah.
What are we complaining about a lot in all the shit we're watching, especially Rings of Power? Teleportation. Everybody's just suddenly one place or another. If you have a map you're working with, and how they're doing that with Lord of the Rings is terrible because there's a map. There are actual maps you can work with. If you have the map and if you measure it out, and I originally also had a ruler. I measured out how many inches or how many miles. This thing's about, I would say, a little over 1,000 miles north to south. So I would be able to work out how far are you traveling, this and that. And I make it very clear. The entire first book, it takes place over several months. As the story, I can say the story starts around here. Our main characters go over here, then they up going here, over here, and then end up back down here. But that's months, weeks of travel. They used to go all the way over here, but that doesn't happen anymore. You understand what I'm saying, though? Maps are so important because you're able to then justify where everything is, where everybody's going, and you understand the distance, and you understand how long it takes. You're not just going from, we're in one city, suddenly we're over here. No, and it also makes it, to borrow the term, I don't like it right now because people are using it too flippantly when it comes to Andor. It's a lived-in world. If you have a map, it's a lived-in world. You can associate, this is what this place looks like. Now take this one, basically triple it, maybe quadruple it, and then you have the massive continent to the south. But it's a globe, so not only is it to the south, but up here, point at wrong screen, it's also to the north. I've recently figured that out in one of my when I was writing this. I realized, wait a minute, because it's a globe and that other continent's so huge, the south part here hits one end and the north part here can hit another end. So it makes you know what you're working with. So maps, in my opinion, are so massively important.
Yeah, me too.
No, I love maps. Like growing up, my favorite book series was the Aragon Inheritance Cycle, and the map at the beginning of that one, I would just pore over that map, seeing where everything is at. And he had the whole thing mapped out for all the books so that he knew all the locations he needed in the fourth book. I loved that map so much. And next series I definitely want it to be high fantasy or high sci-fi off Earth. I don't want it to be on Earth, so I can
it's so much. That's why I love fantasy. I just make it all the hell up. I don't gotta play by anybody else's rules. These are. I can make up my gods. I can make up my societies. I can do whatever I want. I am not locked into anything. That's why I love fantasy, and that's why I love science fiction that doesn't take place on Earth, someplace else, far away, not existent. And that's why the universe I'm creating for all my stories now, it's a completely different universe. It is not our universe. not
Yeah,
our
that's one
galaxies.
thing I was
nothing.
thinking about my book. I spent a lot of time thinking about the worlds, and I just thought that, like, I wanted this to be like a great kind of a plain area, and I don't know if I'll still do this in this iteration. I don't know if it's important, but I was thinking, like, if you're living on the plains and you have like a very large civilization, it's like wood's going to be a luxury, and you're going to have to build your house out of something that's not wood, like so stone or like adobe or
Mhm.
something like that. And it's so interesting when you start thinking about stuff like that, because it really puts like the logic and world building into the world, and that's just so fun to do.
I love westerns. Growing up, it was my favorite genre. Louis L'Amour books. I
Oh
read
yeah,
those
those are so good.
obsessively. Like Lonesome Gods. One of the first scripts I ever wrote was actually a prequel to that. So I guess it is basically fan fiction. So yeah, no,
That's
I
cool.
love that stuff.
Do you do maps, Dre, or do you like mostly do like kind of modern day stuff? Or
So I, of course, don't really have to deal with maps.
no, because you're
Too
just
much.
like, I just like MapQuest.
Yeah, I pretty much have to just jump right into the meat and potatoes. So if you would indulge me a touch.
Oh, go for
course.
it.
So this is I'm dropping you in the middle of issue 2, where Zamir, he gets out of the hospital after dealing with his transformation, and I found a clever little way to basically do exposition dump, which was through a song. So him and his buddy just had a little falling out. So I created a song here called "Wake Up," and I made the group called Sunny Side Up. And this is basically how we kind of get our exposition a bit. So at this point, he doesn't really know what happened to him. But so we have this song that's going on about basically like, I've been gone so long. Did you miss me? Please hold my hand. Did you miss me? Wake up. And it's basically awakening his abilities. So
Yeah,
as
I
the song
see. I
goes
see.
on,
That's so cool.
it just starts to happen. He starts to transform, and then you realize, like, oh
Shroom.
snap, it's the music that's screwing with me. And so then we go, and I love my first person perspectives. So his
Oh, that
hands start
is
to
really
glow.
cool.
Yeah, his hands start to glow. His buddy walks in, and it's like, what is going on? And now his body is completely transformed. And then so we get a physical representation of a body transformation. We
Yeah,
get
he's
the hands
definitely
glow.
bigger.
Yeah, he gets bigger. He gets more aggressive. He gets really hyped up. But then I kind of put in one of my favorite ones. So like so his buddy's like, hey, what if we just try something else? He said, why don't you just try classical music? Because I don't like classical music. So then when he uses classical, his hands turn green. But he becomes a jerk. He becomes a pompous jerk. So like, and then I had to go and look up like that type of old English style language, to try to make him feel more pompousy. So
Oh,
like
I
when his buddy,
love that fact. Yeah,
yeah, so
Jade.
his buddy's like, hey, your hands are green. It's like, no, it's jade, a term first used by the Spanish in 1569 upon the discovery of the jade stone. Like he becomes a completely different person.
That's really
So
cool.
and I really like that. And one more I want to show you is a really cool action sequence that I really put together,
Oh,
that I worked really hard on.
I love that
This
monster.
Yeah, this is
I know, it looks awesome.
yeah, I drop you into issue 4. This was actually my favorite character to write. His name is Sharkbait. He's the best.
Shark bait. Hoo-ha.
Yeah, exactly. And basically, like I don't want to spoil too much, but he's like a man-made monster that doesn't want to be it. So it's kind of like we got Frankenstein.
I love
We kind
those
of got
stories.
These are
yeah,
great.
Frankenstein. Yeah, Creatures of the Black Lagoon. Yes, like we got that. And so then, but he kind of forced Trouble's hand, and he's like, "Yo, all right, we got the
Hip
dance."
hop.
And
Can
then
you
so,
handle it?
and so we gotta start handling business. So it's I love telling stories that way. It's
That's really creative. I like that.
yeah, yeah, and I thought I found like a really cool way for exposition without it, because you can't be, just telling your audience this is what happens. You can't do that.
Yeah.
But if you have exposition in a way that's creative and actually
Mhm.
pushes the story forward, your audience is just like, oh my god, I'm part of the. I'm just part of it. Like it's just
Yeah,
flow
you go
naturally.
through the
It's
like
the
as
sign of a good
characters
writer.
learn stuff, the readers learn stuff with the characters, which is always why the maid and butler stuff is so cringy to me, because it's like have them find something out. Like I wish like I just think about real life. It's like I keep thinking of House of Dragon. I'm like, oh my gosh, what if we just had some people gossiping and somebody overheard something? Like, there you go. You do not have to have like literally. Well, I heard that this and this happened out in the Narrow Sea. Okay, cool.
Exactly. And I think using music in this way, I thought was a unique way of
Mhm.
dealing out exposition and pushing our story and like literally leading our character to where he needs to be next.
Yeah, and
I
it's
thought it was
kind of cool.
incredibly dope.
I noticed in that panel, because I don't even know the story, but you're kind of saying, oh, the guy's waking up from the hospital, so it's kind of like the song kind of mirrors that too.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like poetry, so that it rhymes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's like, and that's the way I wanted to do it because like at the end of our first issue, it's just boom, an event has happened, and now it's like aftermath. There's this consequence, and like so, and me, I'm more of a classic writer in the aspect of hero's journey.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
I don't like when my heroes just know what they're doing.
Yes.
Like my hero goes through the ringer. All he does is take L's. That's
It's the
it.
most compelling to me too.
All he does is take it. Like even when he wins, he loses. That's the type of stuff
Yeah,
that
I
I
love
like.
that
Mhm.
stuff.
So we as the audience are like, man, I really just want to see him succeed. I really want to see him get one over on what's happening.
That sounds
throughout
like
the entire
payoff.
arc, you get that.
Sounds like a payoff.
Yes, payoff.
Set up and payoff.
I feel bad though, Dre. I was looking at that. I read so many manga. I was reading left to right, not right to left. I feel bad. I'm reading. Wait a minute. Damn it! I'm not the right way. Wrong side of
Darn
the
it,
world.
Adam, get your brain straight.
I'm at, wait. I'm reading. Oh shit.
But yeah, but like I was saying earlier, like villains are my favorite thing. Like Sharkbait.
Mhm, me too.
Oh my god,
Oh
I
yeah,
love
that's
him.
so good.
I love him more than my main protagonist. Like literally, I literally put a part of myself in the villain. I mean, I'm just
I know,
like,
it's
yo,
so interesting. Like, well, I just did a like book review on my page for No Country for Old Men, and I
great
mean,
movie.
it is a great movie, and the great part about it is it's a great adaptation of the book. Like, they did a really good job on the adaptation, but like just realizing like the villains in that story are just they're like on equal footing with the protagonists, and just kind of realizing when somebody it's like really cool. Like the villain in that story, he has his own moral code, and it's definitely not normal or anything like that, but the way that he kind of sticks to it and it works out in this story, it's just so interesting. And then like I think Game of Thrones does that whole like interesting villains thing really good, and excuse me. And I just it is hard because you want to make sure that the person that you're writing isn't just like some monolithic person. And they always tell you in screenwriting it's like the villain is the hero of his own story, and that's true. But like at the same time, it's like it's really easy not to kind of ignore that person. But
Yeah,
that's cool.
and I agree. And like my thing with villains, they are why we get invested.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If our hero our hero is supposed to be somebody that's cookie cutter enough for us to see ourselves in them. They should be enough for us to be like, hey, I want to be that guy. I want to go on that adventure. I want to be
Yeah.
whoever. But what am I facing? What are my adversities? Do you have
Yeah,
these
and
villains?
your villain has to they have to be a worthy opponent of the protagonist, because it's like like it's kind of like the problem with modern fantasy that we're all dealing with. It's like you don't like make your hero look good by making everyone else look bad. It's like you want your hero to go against somebody that's really that like if they defeated them or they learn something even better, if they don't defeat them, if they fail and they learn something, it like improves how the hero looks in your story and like what they know and the skills. And it's just like
You
that's
want
missing
an
so much.
opponent worthy of your skill.
Or
Yes.
not even that.
Mhm.
Not even that. How about dropping in an opponent that is way over their heads at one point?
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
that too.
Here comes a villain, or at least let's just say a henchman or a villain or one of the villain's underlings. Okay, our protagonists, our group, they are not equipped for this level of the fight. And to me, as much as I like a hero doing the hero moment and owning everything, owning everybody on the field, there's also something satisfying about dropping in a bigger bad and saying, yeah, okay, you are nothing to me. I am, and especially when you're doing it from their perspective. They're the one. You're not watching you're not from one of the heroes or one of the hero group, the companions. You're watching from the villain's point of view. Yeah. Oh, how dare you? How dare you bring yourself before me? How dare you stand up to me? You are not worthy of that title. I will show you actual power. And then you have them actually all get their asses kicked, rightfully so. Now,
Those moments are great.
The trick is then getting them out of that situation in a believable manner.
Yeah.
There's the trick.
I have a moment like that in the beginning of my first book. He commits suicide and then he regenerates and he shows up on the top of a Canadian mountain and he has no idea what he's doing. He's naked. All he's wearing is his necklace. He's on the top of a mountain. He has no fucking clue what's going on. And then the Greek Titan Atlas just shows up and starts asking him questions, which I don't explain what the questions mean, but by the end of the book, you kind of figure out what the importance of that is later on.
I love just throwing people in the stories like with just no explanation. Like, get in the car, we're going.
And then Atlas just wipes the floor with him, like he kicks his freaking ass. He picks up a boulder and smashes his skull in. And it's over, but Atlas gives him the proper funeral rites and he regenerates on the bonfire afterwards. He's reduced to ashes, and then he does the legitimate Phoenix birth from the ashes type moment.
Oh, that's cool.
Because I knew I wanted to have the big bombastic explosion when he first did it, and then I needed the story thing, but I also wanted that moment very early on of the classic rising from the ashes in a very emotional, personal way versus the big powerful story beat moment. So that's why I had him die twice so close together so I could have both of those moments. But yeah, Atlas just and so the whole book is kind of like, hey, I need to be able to beat Atlas. And then just like you're saying, Adam, Kronos shows up at the end and it's not even Atlas is nothing compared to him. Yeah. So kind of the same thing like you're talking about.
That's cool.
And also then you get to the growth of your character, especially if you're going over multiple volumes. You get to see the growth, and especially if you've detailed a proper path for that growth. It's not just boom, you got it. You've laid out the rules to how they're going to get stronger, how they're going to achieve that. Maybe other people don't have those skills, but they have skills that put them on par. It's just crafting a proper power scale. And again, this is something I have to be very careful of because I'm going to be dropping everybody into worlds. And the power levels, it's going to, for lack of a better example, Dragon Ball Z type shit. The shit just keeps, the power levels will just keep rising. The strength of the enemies and the foes will just keep going. And I have to keep it believable and legitimized. But you know how you do that? Yeah. You make them fall in love with your characters. If you people are attached to the characters, they're okay with it. And if you have a legitimate power growth, you show how it's been going on for long enough, they buy into it. You don't just have them, okay, training montage, we're all good now. No, that's gonna
be something that's my story. Like I that there's sort of like a coming of age thing, but I think in a lot of fantasy there's like, I think it's a little different where a lot of them are coming into power stories, and that's how I'm kind of framing my story. Is my main character finds out that he has magical powers and he's somebody that shouldn't. I mean, he's from like the lowest case of people, and he gets into a situation in a shootout and they run out of ammo and bam, magic. But the way that the magic works, it immediately like lets people know that somebody's using magic. So all of a sudden the natives want him and the like aristocracy wants him, and they're going to have a chase in the mountains. And he's going to get a lot of experience out trying to survive. So I'm trying to get all the best parts of the Western and the exciting like fantasy adventure from fantasy too. So that's gonna be fun.
That's a very that's a great genre mashup that I haven't seen done well before.
I know.
And I'm really excited to see how it
I was
turns
so
out.
weird when I was starting to write it because I just looked and it seems to be like it's sort of like supernatural fantasy. So there's like vampires and werewolves and that kind of thing. And then there was like steampunk is a big thing. And I'm so surprised that nobody's thought to like mash up like actual like high fantasy like Lord of the Rings stuff, because I was like thinking Lord of the Rings, like Wheel of Time. It's all the kind of action adventure stories that are kind of in with like Western. So
how fast would Lord of the Rings end if Pippin had a gun?
I know, and that's the other thing with guns is like I didn't want to ruin the fantasy aspect of it, so I was thinking, how do I get guns in this world? And then I thought about what guns were and how they would work in this world, and I came up with the idea of like, well, I live in California, so like gun control is a huge thing, and since the magic users are kind of in charge of the industrial revolution stuff in this world, that they've become like they have a monopoly on the production of like firearms, so people have them, but like a whole box of bullets is like 3 months pay. So it's like my guy has a gun, but like he's never shot, like he shot it like maybe a couple of times just to learn how to use it, but he will not use it unless it's special and the occasion. And then in the prologue there's like somebody's gonna get like, there's mutiny and somebody's gonna get executed, and they're not using a pistol because, and I don't say why, but it'll find out later, it's because like, you know, the ammo is too valuable to waste on this guy. So
yeah, that's what I was figuring.
That's a really interesting way to get guns, kind of the way that some people do magic systems, like make it incredibly justified and difficult.
Really
yeah, that's kind of how the
marry
magic
those.
is too, because like I thought about making everyone magic, and then what would be the point of guns if people could just kill each other with magic? And then the more I thought about it, what if it was more like kind of a Game of Thrones situation with Targaryens, and it's only this one group of people that have access to it? And that just came up with more interesting things, and I had to rethink. I had my writing buddy helping me a lot, and he was kind of coming up with some logical inconsistency problems, and that's probably the hardest part of writing for me, is I just let my imagination go, and then he's like, well, that makes no sense. So back to the drawing board.
Yeah, those moments are difficult.
Meshing guns in fantasy is a tricky thing. I have to deal with that too, in terms of considering I'm building a universe. There will be scientifically advanced cultures meshing with basically fantasy based type stuff. I think I've done it well enough. You have to have everything on the level where just because you have a gun doesn't mean you're going to beat fantasy guys. Magic is as powerful here, but the gun, especially maybe different technology, it's going to work. It's a delicate balance, but I feel it's worthy. It's worth doing it all, because then you have all aspects of it in there. There are characters that are going to have guns eventually, but their guns built a certain way. They're charged with magic, maybe. It's not just this.
Yeah, that's how mine worked. And I had such a great moment with my brother, because he's into firearms, and I asked him one night, and he works nights, and at the time I was just staying up really late writing, and I met him up when he came home, and we just got talking about it, and I'm like, I need a magic gun that makes sense, because at the time I was reading Brandon Sanderson's Alley of Law, and I'm not a huge fan of how he uses that in his work, and I wanted something that actually made sense. And so he actually designed in a total like scientifically like workable kind of a thing for how guns would work if they're using different things that aren't gunpowder and stuff. So I'm very excited about that.
I always recommend anybody taking a look at the anime Outlaw Star and caster guns. I love that. I incorporate that later on. I didn't really get a chance to use it yet, but it's gonna get. It's there. It's part of the thing. But caster guns are really cool. Basically, spiritually based ammo, and it's very cool stuff. I love Outlaw Star. It's such a good show.
Well, I hate to interrupt us since we're really having a great conversation, but we're coming up on 2 hours, and Tuesday night's main event is going to get started soon. So unfortunately, we've got to call this the end. And
that is the smart choice.
Yes, so good call. We can go on for hours. Save it for next week.
I'm starving. I'm hungry.
This was so much fun, you guys. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to the chat. Let's go around the horn and plug your YouTube stuff, plug all that, and plug your books, pimp your shit a little bit. And, we'll just see how things land when that ends, if it takes another half an hour. But Lady B, where can people find you?
My YouTube channel is Lady Balefire. So far, I've been doing reviews of House of the Dragon. We're going to do one with me and Jed today. And I'm just going to keep doing that. I have some ideas for other stuff, but my pain levels have not been good, so I don't know when I'm going to be able to do that, but I'm definitely going to record the fan fiction stuff with Alex from the White Cloaks, and then hopefully actually add the extra section where I'm giving writing advice too, and I can do some of the development stuff I like. And then we have This Is Murder Country too, so on Saturday. And that's all I've been to do for now.
Perfect. Well, it was great to have you here, and links for all these beautiful people are in the description below, and some of the mods have been pushing it. But Dre, it was so great to have you here on my channel for the first time, and where can people find you?
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. It was all mine. I love sharing. I love the chat. You guys have been great. You guys have been fantastic. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Brew Planet Comics. Pretty simple. Brew Planet Comics for everything. You can get my book, Trouble, The Real Within, on spinwiz.com/trouble. And issue number 7 will be dropping tonight at midnight. So for those that haven't caught up, hurry up and catch up. So you get number 7. What do we got? Tomorrow might be dropping some more comic book news as well as announcements for issue number 7. Thursday, of course, She-Hulk reviews. Great. Whatever. Friday, more comic news. Usually I am with you good fellas on the round table on Sundays, but this Sunday I will not be there. But chat, I will have a special message for you all. Make sure that's pre-recorded. But that's all I really got. Oh, and you can follow me on social media at DeBrute00. That's DABRUTE00 on all social media platforms.
Hail, great to hear. And Adam, I feel like I never see you. It's just like I don't know who you are anymore.
You might not know who I am again by this weekend because my insanity begins tomorrow. We have Andor tomorrow. I don't care what anybody says, it's trash. I'm not going to change my mind. Andor review tomorrow, but I will be starting tomorrow with a day since we all may not have heard this evening that Hugh Jackman's Wolverine will be a part of Deadpool 3, which is coming out in 2024. So I have some thoughts on that. That'll be my first video tomorrow. But then, of course, before the day is over, Andor review. Thursday, like Dre, I will suffer through She-Hulk. And of course, on Friday, Rings of Power. Oh, the trifecta.
This is for our country.
And on Saturday night, two of these fine people, sorry, Dre wants no part of this.
No, I don't.
Run, Dre, run.
Will continue to join me on our Saturday evening stream on my channel. This is Mortal Country, where we go over the Rings of Power episode for the week. And it goes on longer than we really wanted to, but we can't help it. It takes what it takes. And I'll say this now, there are seats open this weekend. So if you are interested in joining, reach out to me. There still is time because tomorrow night is also a Natural 20 stream, which means there's a room to get on and sit down, and maybe you find out you can hang with the crew and join us in the fun. Either way, check that out. And then as Dre alluded to, Roundtable, 2 p.m. Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, where we gather, we talk about the crap, and we commiserate. We commiserate. Mm-hmm. And there's good stuff coming up this week. Week's not even over yet, and I've already got at least 2 topics lined up, aside from talking about the crap shows. Either way, check out also video game streams. Right now we're doing Star Wars: The Old Republic on my channel. Hopefully on Thursday I'll be in one piece to be able to do that. Depends how much She-Hulk breaks me. I don't know. Whatever. Other than that, that's what you got. As always, it's a pleasure to be with these fine lads and lady. And I hope to continue talking about all this writer stuff because, as I said at the beginning of the stream, it's what I really just want to keep doing.
Yes, thank you very much. And it was amazing to talk to everyone. Like, nice to meet you, Dre. I look forward to reading that. I'm very excited about that now.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine, Lady B. The pleasure is all mine.
Well, all these beautiful and creative people, their links are once again in the comments below. And thank you to the amazing chat. You guys have been off the rails doing some great chatting.
They're active.
And you guys are why we're doing this. Getting you guys excited about getting into your own writing gets us more excited about our writing. I'm feeling like getting more involved. I need to pump out book 3. I'm struggling with book 3 a little bit, but this makes me want to do it more. This show will come back. And not to get too pompous or philosophical like I usually try to make things, is I think that this whole thing, what we're doing, is important because the advent of a healthy and intelligent society is always when they develop the ability for the written word. And our written word and entertainment is so broken these days that it's hurting us on a societal level. So I think our input is vastly important to maintaining what it means to be a society and a healthy, intelligent species. That's my philosophical musings out of the way. But yeah, this was a great stream. Look forward to the next one. But anyway, that's all we have for today. Check out all our videos. Links in the description below. I'm always busy, daily videos, but I will see you all anon. Take care, everyone. If you like what I do here and want to see good, compelling stories that Hollywood will no longer give you, check out my book series, Odyssey of a Phoenix, a mythological epic about philosophy, morality, and modern-day mental illness issues. Books 1, Down in Flames, and Book 2, Apocalypse Then, currently on sale. Book 3, Kill the Dark, coming soon.